Welcome to your Journey to Joy podcast. I'm your host, Moyra Gorski, and I'm on a mission to help you find joy in the chaos of life. As a retired nurse, multi-passionate entrepreneur, and mom of 4 adult children, I know what it's like to feel the overwhelm of it all and wonder if and when the joy will show up again. And I've learned it's up to us to go find that joy. On this show, you will hear inspiring stories from those who have overcome all kinds of life challenges, tips on how to stay healthy and vibrant during the ups and downs of life, and simple ways on finding joy in your own life. Let's face it, life is messy, yet when we travel together on this journey, support and encourage each other along the way, that joy starts to show up again. I'm so excited to lead you on this journey of you to find the joyful life that you deserve. Hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Moyra Gorski. So glad that you're here supporting this podcast, listening to these episodes and sharing them with others. I'm trying to come on a little bit more and share some more wisdom because I feel like it's certainly valuable to share what I learn in life so that I can share that with you so that we can all learn together. And these days, as you know, as I've shifted into the second season of this podcast, it's all about joy. I was thinking last Sunday, I often go to a yoga class on Sunday mornings, and that's where I'm headed in just a little bit here. But I really had some thoughts last week when I was in yoga that I wanted to share with you. And it's really about what is getting in our way. Because in order for us to have joy in our life, we need to clear things often out of our way because I know that there are some things that, quote unquote, get in our way of being the best that we can and having the most joy in our life. And I wanted to share 4 things that I thought about during my yoga session that really all fit within this, what's getting in our way. And then I want to share somebody that I heard on a podcast and just a quote and encourage, because I'm going to go and take a look at this new book that this gentleman has that I learned about as well. So the 4 tips are stand tall, and we're going to talk about comparison, we're going to talk about finding our voice, and we're going to talk about being flexible. So first of all, standing tall. There's some quote that talks about standing tall and being a pineapple or something like that, and I couldn't happen to find that this morning. But what I mean by that is standing tall for who we are, and don't apologize for who we are. I have a shirt that says that. Don't apologize for who you are. You were made in God's image in the way that God intended you to be, if that's what you believe in. That's what I believe in. We were all created unique and beautiful, and we all need to stand tall and be proud of that. Yes, we are different than the other person, and we are unique, and that's fine. We are who we are. And I think we first need to just stand tall in our life, in our day, and be proud of who we are. Don't apologize for maybe something that you think is not, the best trait, but what's the best trait, right? We're just all very different. We're going to talk about comparison next. If we're comparing ourselves to others and saying, oh, we're less than them, we're different than them, and that's not so good. It's like, what does it matter? What matters is us, right? And who we are and what we bring to the world. So we don't want to apologize for who we are. So stand tall and just be proud of yourself and who you are and what you have to offer the world. So that's my first tip. Number 2 is comparison. And what made me think about this is during class, during yoga class, there's music played in the background. And I noticed that, I'm not sure what her playlist was, if this was, because I know that the instructors there have different playlists with different themes. And this one in particular seemed to be that there were songs that I knew, but they were by a different artist. And they were all beautiful. They were all great. And at this point, a week later, I can't remember the names of the songs, and that doesn't matter. But there was a different artist that was singing that familiar song. And they were all beautiful and they were all great. And that's what got me thinking about comparison. Like these people obviously loved these songs, the artists who decided to record these songs in their voice and in their style, they obviously loved the song, loved the artist, but they wanted to put their spin on it. And when I listened to them, they were beautiful in their own right. And I thought, why not? We can look at others and compare ourselves, not the comparison, we can look at others and be inspired by them, but then we can create our own thing. And we don't have to do it just like the other person. Like when we compare ourselves to others and say, oh, I have to do it exactly like them. No, we don't have to. We can be inspired by them, and we can look at, i.e. the artist who looks at the other artist and says, wow, I love his song. I love her song. I love the rendition of that. And this is my spin on it. And it can still be good because these songs were beautiful. And it just made me think that, wow, instead of comparing, let's just be inspired by others and taking that inspiration from others and then putting our own spin on things. Comparison can be the thief of all joy. Now, I'm raising my hand because I know that that's something that I've continued to, I've struggled with throughout my life, is looking at others and saying, wow, I'm not as good as them. And wow, I wish I could be like that. And it just sucks the joy right out of us. And instead, we can look at others and be inspired by that. Be inspired by what we're seeing, by what we're hearing, and then saying, what can I learn from that? And what can I do myself with my own uniqueness and create something magical? So, I don't know. I think, again, I always look at this comparison thing so often because it's been a struggle for me throughout my 59 years of my life, is looking at others and thinking, wow, they're different, and they're different than me, I'm different than them, and thus there's something wrong with me. And yet, really, there's not. We're just all made different. And so let's not compare ourselves and suck that joy out. Let's look at others and be inspired by what we learn from others, and then come back to ourselves and then use all of that wisdom to create something much more magical and better with what we put out to the world. And number 3 is find your voice. Again, something that I've been working on for many years is finding my voice. And again, with what I said before, is standing tall. Don't apologize for who you are, but find your voice. But I think that there's a couple of things with that too. It is finding your voice and speaking up about what's important to you and setting boundaries. We've talked on this podcast before about boundaries. Boundaries is how we show other people how we want to be treated. And so speaking up, finding our voice, telling others what's acceptable and not acceptable for you, and just, again, being firm in our voice. But I've also learned throughout the years that there's times to find your voice. But within that, it's important to know when to speak up, and also important to know when to not speak up. That certainly has been a lesson for me throughout the last many years, because I always have a lot to say, and there's a lot of thoughts going on in my head, and I always want to, speak up and not be silent, because I feel for many years that I was staying quiet. And I was less confident, and so I wasn't speaking up. And so it's like, okay, I'm speaking up now. Yet there are times then that I believe that we need to listen and then pause and realize, do I need to speak up, or do I need to just stay quiet? Is it a time for staying quiet, or is it a time for speaking up? Because sometimes I have found that, in life, maybe you can relate to this, that you hear something said and you really want to speak up, but it's more of it's leading to an argument perhaps, or it's really kind of going against what that other person has said. And I encourage you to think, is it worth it? Is it worth me to say something? Because sometimes people have a certain view on things and they're just going to stay very adamant about that. And anything that we say really isn't going to change them, right? And we know, and change their thought. And we know that what we can do is control ourselves and what we say. We can't change anybody else. And so sometimes there is that time that it's like, okay, it's good to speak up, but there's also sometimes that we need to slow down and think, maybe now isn't the time to say anything. And just, maybe nod our head and say, okay, and then move on, really, and not speak up. So I think that there's a real distinction between when we say, let's find our voice, it's also knowing when to speak and when not to speak. Just staying quiet, because perhaps us speaking up might lead to a confrontation that's really not necessary, right? And I say all these things from my own personal experience. Often I think about that with my husband. We're both pretty strong, confident people. And there are times that, yes, I'm speaking up because I want to, talk about what's important to me or set those boundaries or have a discussion or something. But my husband also has some pretty strong views. And there's been too many times that there's been, things have led to arguments, or, we're trying to both get the last word. And, in the end, it's really not worth it sometimes. And so I've learned the importance of the time that it is to, like, okay, I'm just not gonna, I'll say, okay. And then I close my mouth or I walk away or something like that. That it's so important sometimes, because sometimes it's like, what's the point? He isn't, somebody that you're speaking with, they may just not change their view. And you continuing to say something and have a heated discussion just may not be worth it. So I encourage you to think about that. When to speak up, yes, and when to not speak up. And then the last one is be flexible. Now, I was in a yoga class, and so I often talk or think about flexibility when I'm in yoga. But there is so much to, yes, being flexible in yoga, but also that leads to being flexible in life. I'm somebody that has, if you followed me along and listened to my episodes and know me, I have this, I'm kind of this, recovering codependent, recovering control freak. I've had my strong thoughts, and I've had, I had my own eating disorder when in college, and a lot of it's around control and feeling like you're out of control and trying to grab onto that. And what I mean by being flexible is just being flexible, again, in life, in certain circumstances, and not feeling like you have to have it all together. I have a Post-it note up on my mirror in my bathroom that says, trust the process. I'm learning to let go. I'm learning to not be so attached to the results of things. I'm learning to be more flexible. And I want that to be a message that you hear today too, that we need to be more flexible. Yes, there are ways that we come in and we stand tall, right? And we don't compare to others, and we don't apologize for who we are, and we find our voice. And yet, there's also a time that we need to let go. It's to not be so controlling or so wrapped up with the fact that we don't know what the next move is, or we don't know what the next thing is. And, we're disappointed with what one of our kids is doing, or perhaps what our spouse is doing, or how our business is going, or yada, yada, and on and on. And yet, the message is be flexible. Let go a little bit. Take a breath. Think. And be flexible. Know that life is about the ups and downs and the ins and outs and all of that. And if we're too stuck on things having to go a certain way, and our business growth having to go a certain way, and our life having to go a certain way, we're just holding on too tight. We need to be flexible, because things change. And I truly believe, if you believe that there's a power greater than us, we can't control everything in life. There is a power greater than us that really has things laid out, and we know that things are going to go the way they're going to go. And we can't always control that. Often we can't. we can control what we're doing. Again, what those tips are that I shared above, that's what we can work on. And being flexible, I think, is so, so important in our life, in our business, in our relationships. And when we're grabbing on too tight, we're trying to control things. That really is sucking the joy out of us, out of those situations. And we really need to be flexible. So those are the 4 tips that I wanted to share with you today about standing tall, thoughts about comparison, finding our voice, when to speak up and when not to, and being flexible. And then later this week, I heard a wonderful podcast by Kristen Boss. I'm super excited. I love Kristen Boss. She is a great podcaster, a great leader in the network marketing space. She has a great podcast. She has a great coaching program. I'm super excited because she's going to be at our global conference for Shackley in less than 4 weeks here. So she's a keynote speaker of ours. So I'm super excited to be in person with her. And so I often listen to her podcast and get a lot of wisdom from her. And she interviewed John Gordon this last week, and it was so good. I've got to listen to it again. And I was reminded of John Gordon. Do you know him? He wrote The Energy Bus. Just look him up, John Gordon, but John with a Jon, and then Gordon. Wonderful, just wonderful guy that's all about energy, positive energy and positive thoughts and things like that. And he has a new book out called One Truth. I want to check it out. I haven't picked it up yet. But I, again, was very inspired by what he had to say and just the positiveness and the energy. And one of the quotes that he had out there that he talked about, that he put out there actually on an Instagram post that apparently came from the book, The One Truth, that makes me want to go ahead and get the book. He says, there's a lot of noise out there, and remember it has no power on you. And don't look outside, look inside. Because he talks about that we don't create the world out from the outside in, we create it from the inside out. I love that. And it goes right along with what I shared today. We're not going to create the world by looking at everybody else, and we're not going to create a joyful world by looking and comparing ourselves to others and by keeping quiet and by not standing tall. We're not going to create a positive, joyful world by looking outward. We need to start from the inside, and we can create it from the inside out, and bringing that energy to us and bringing that joy to us and finding our voice and standing tall and being proud of who we are, and then bringing that to the world. I think it's a brilliant short statement there that it, like I said, encourages me to go and check out his new book. And again, it's called The One Truth, or called One Truth by John Gordon, Jon, Gordon, right? But you can, again, Google him, and I'm sure you will find him. But I thought that was a brilliant statement. And the podcast, too, I'll link in the show notes, from Kristen Boss. She did a wonderful, it was really a great interview. So much wisdom, more than I'm sharing now. So I do encourage you to go and listen to that and check out John Gordon's website. He has so many free resources and lots of things. He's been doing this for a long time, sharing positive energy and positive thoughts and things like that with the world. And I love that. And I hope that you check that out too. So that's my short wisdom for today, the wisdom that I got from the yoga studio. And I hope that it resonates with you, and know that, again, we are here to create joy in the world. But it's up to us, right? It's up to us to take a look inside of ourselves and create the world from the inside out. And I encourage you to think about that. And love to hear from you. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Would love to hear what you're doing each day to bring joy to the world, but what you're doing with yourself each and every day so that you can show up and not get in your own way. Again, I think when we do these things that I talked about earlier, it blocks us. We get blocked from being the best version of ourselves. And so I'd love to hear from you. And I'll leave it by saying sometimes we need a little bit of help. Sometimes we need a help I know that when I was going through some pretty tough times with our family and with our daughter and my business growth and things like that, I knew that I needed some help. I realized that I didn't often ask for help, so that was quite a realization, but that I needed a little bit of help. And so I've hired coaches throughout the year. I have gone on different retreats. I've read lots of books because sometimes I've realized that other people have wisdom, right? And I can use that. I can learn from them, and they can help me be a better version of me. And so, and I was reminded of this too, that with a couple of things. Again, I say that if you want a little bit of help, this is what I do. I record this podcast and I put out wonderful episodes here, but in my business and in my life, I coach people to find joy in the chaos of life. There's always going to be some juggling and there's always going to be some ups and downs. And yet, I know that we can all find joy and it's up to us. And that's what I do. I coach people. And so if you're interested in what that means, please reach out to me because, again, sometimes we all need a little bit of help. And there's nothing wrong with that. Is hiring a coach or working with somebody. Or I was even reminded of it, Shackley, the company that I represent and have for the last 23 years, they just launched a pre-workout product. And I don't usually use a particular pre-workout product. I get up in the morning and I drink my warm lemon water. I have some time of reflection. Perhaps I might have some tea. And then I go work out. Well, this is a pre-workout that I've started to drink. And I've got to tell you, I absolutely love it because it's giving me a little bit of help and assistance when I go to work out. Meaning that within it, there is a little bit of caffeine and not too much that makes me too jittery. It does have some L-theanine, which is wonderful for focus. Really, so when I'm working out, I stay focused on what I'm doing. And then the third thing is this beta-alanine, which is pretty brilliant ingredient because it basically helps your muscles not fatigue as fast. And so I've been doing much more, if you follow me on social, I've been doing much more strength training these days and lifting weights. And so I'm feeling the difference that I'm able to lift and I'm not super sore afterwards, even when we go really heavy on heavy days. I'm able to go longer and faster or longer and harder or whatever it is that you say. And because my muscles aren't fatiguing as quickly, it's something that helps the lactic acid not build up as much in your muscles. So it's great. So I say that all because if you're interested in the product, please reach out. There's always a link in the show notes to my Shackley online wellness store. But it's something that sometimes we need a little bit of help. And having a pre-workout has been helping me do better in the gym. When you hire a coach, it helps you do better in life because we need a little bit of assistance. We need a little bit of help. And I say, don't be too shy to get some help, to reach out. If you're struggling, reach out. And with me, it just may be a 30-minute phone call that I can help you identify some things that can help you get out of your way. And I may have some tips and some things to follow, and you may want to, coach longer with me. But it may be just a few tips that I can share with you that can help you, right yourself and move on in a more positive way. Sometimes, again, when we're working out in life, we just need a little extra help. And so I leave you with that encouragement too. Make sure that you're asking for help. I used to say that I was kind of embarrassed to ask for help because I thought, well, that means that I'm not capable. It doesn't mean you're not capable. It just means that you need a little help at this particular point. You need some different ideas because what you're doing and what, you're saying and thinking, you just need a little bit of different perspective on things. And getting a different perspective from a friend, from a coach, from a book can be so brilliant. And at the end of the day, if you don't want to do any of that, just sit down and start writing. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling stuck? Open up a journal, pull out a piece of paper and start writing. Because when we start writing, we hear ourselves talking. We're allowing ourselves to talk on that paper. And there's a lot of things that we can learn as we're writing things down and as we're journaling. So if you don't want to do all those other things and asking for help yourself by opening up a book, a notebook, and starting to write there. And so that's it for today. I'm so glad that you're listening. I'm so glad for the feedback, again, that I get with this podcast. I continue to know that the more we can band together and be positive and share these positive words of encouragement with others and share our stories, even when they're messy, even when it requires a lot of juggling, when we share our stories, we can help other people feel like they're not alone and know that there's hope in the world. And as I say, there's always joy. So let's continue to be on your journey of joy. And remember, joy is the journey of you. So life is about being on a journey of you, learning, growing, ups and downs, and in the end, being intentional about going to find things that bring you joy. So keep being joyful in the world, keep listening, and make it a great day. Hey there, ready to live a more joyful life? Considering connecting with someone who can help you? If so, I'd like to be that person. I offer a free consultation where we determine where the chaos is in your life and how you can learn to bring more joy each and every day. Visit my website, moyragorski.com, or simply email me, moyra@moyragorski.com, with more joy in the subject line. I look forward to connecting, and I'm here to say there will always be some chaos, which requires a little juggling, but you can find joy and live your life intentionally filled with that joy. Let me help you on your journey to joy. And that's joy, the journey of you.